The alarm screamed through the bridge of the Endeavour. Captain Jake Harrison jumped from his chair and stared at the main screen. A ship floated in the darkness of space, broken and bleeding air from a dozen holes. The distress signal pulsed weakly like a dying heartbeat. Jake had been exploring the outer edges of known space for 15 years. He had seen many strange things, but something about this felt wrong. The ship was not human. It belonged to a species called the Vrelics, known throughout the galaxy as brilliant engineers but terrible fighters. Lieutenant Lisa Martinez stood at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across the controls. She had served in Earth Special Forces before joining the exploration fleet. Her instincts were screaming danger, but she kept her voice calm. "Captain, I'm picking up another ship. It's attached to the Vrelics vessel like a parasite." Jake studied the readings. Pirates. The Kragoth, to be exact. They were a species that made their living by attacking weaker races. 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor, and strong enough to bend steel bars with their bare hands. They had been terrorizing this sector for generations. Dr. Sam Cooper pushed his glasses up his nose and leaned forward. The xenobiologist had dreamed his whole life of meeting alien species. Now he wished it was under better circumstances. "We have to help them," Sam said quietly. Jake knew the smart move was to call for backup and wait. The Endeavour was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had some weapons, but nothing that could match a Kragoth pirate vessel. Still, by the time help arrived, everyone on that Vrelic ship would be dead or worse. "Lisa, gather a boarding team. We're going in." 20 minutes later, Lisa led 5 humans through the torn hull of the Vrelic ship. The artificial gravity was failing, making everything feel wrong. Bodies floated in the corridors, both Vrelics and Kragoth. The pirates had not expected any resistance, but the engineers had fought anyway. Lisa signaled her team to spread out. She had learned something important during her military career. When you were smaller and weaker than your enemy, you did not fight fair. You used every advantage you could find. The first Kragoth they encountered was looting a storage bay. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, its scaled skin gleaming under the emergency lights. It saw the humans and laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "More prey," it growled in broken galactic common. Lisa did not respond. She simply pressed a button on her wrist device. The storage bay doors slammed shut and the atmosphere began venting into space. The Kragoth's laughter died as it realized what was happening. It charged toward the control panel, but Lisa was faster. She shot the controls, sealing the pirate inside. The team moved deeper into the ship. They found 3 Vrelic survivors huddled in an engineering compartment. The aliens were small, barely 4 feet tall with gray skin and large eyes. They stared at the humans in confusion and hope. "We're here to help," Lisa said, keeping her voice gentle. "Stay quiet and follow us." Getting in had been easy. Getting out would be harder. The Kragoth had noticed their missing comrade and were hunting through the ship. Lisa could hear their heavy footsteps echoing through the metal corridors. She led her team through maintenance tunnels too small for the Kragoth to follow. When they had to cross open areas, they moved fast and quiet. Once, they had to hide in a dark room while 3 pirates stomped past, arguing about the humans who had dared to board their prize. They were almost to the docking port when everything went wrong. A Kragoth patrol spotted them. There were 5 pirates against 6 humans and 3 Vrelics. The corridor was too narrow to maneuver, and there was nowhere to run. The lead Kragoth raised a weapon that looked like it could punch holes through starship hulls. Lisa calculated the odds in a fraction of a second. They could not win a straight fight. So she would not fight straight. She grabbed a plasma charge from her belt and threw it not at the Kragoth but at the ceiling above them. The explosion tore through the already damaged structure. Metal and debris rained down, and the corridor began to decompress. Lisa's team had their suits sealed. The Kragoth did not. They scrambled backward, trying to reach a sealed bulkhead. Lisa used those precious seconds to get her group to the docking port, but the Kragoth leader was faster than she expected. It dove through the closing bulkhead and landed between Lisa and safety. Up close, the pirate was terrifying. Its claws could tear through armor and its jaws could crush bone. "You die here, human," it snarled. Lisa looked up at the creature. She was exhausted. Her ammunition was running low and she had 3 innocent aliens depending on her. The smart thing would be to surrender, but humans did not always do the smart thing. "No," she said simply. She activated the emergency blast doors. They came down like a guillotine, forcing the Kragoth to choose between chasing her or being cut in half. It chose survival and jumped back. Lisa and her team made it to the docking port and sealed it behind them. Back on the Endeavor, the Vrelic survivors were treated in the medical bay. Their leader, Commander Zilnak, stood on the bridge with Captain Harrison. The alien's large eyes studied the humans with new understanding. "Your species is listed in our database as unremarkable," Zilnak said. "Medium strength, average intelligence, nothing special. But what we witnessed today was extraordinary. You faced an enemy stronger than you and won," Jake shrugged. "We just did what needed to be done." "No," Zilnak said firmly. "You did what no other species would do. The Kragoth are feared throughout this sector. Most races avoid them or pay tribute. You attacked them to save strangers. Why?" Sam stepped forward, cleaning his glasses. "Because they needed help. What else were we supposed to do? Leave you to die?" The Vrelic's commander was silent for a long moment. Then he touched his hand to his chest in what Jake recognized as a gesture of deep respect. "I must update our database," Zilnak said. "Humanity is not unremarkable. You are something we have not seen before. You do not have the strongest bodies or the best weapons, but you have something more dangerous. You refuse to give up even when you should." Lisa entered the bridge, still in her damaged armor. She heard Zilnax's words and smiled tiredly. "Is that a compliment?" "It is a warning," Zilnax replied. "A warning I will share with my people and the Galactic Council. Humanity should not be underestimated. Those who make that mistake will regret it." As the Endeavor carried the Vrelic survivors to safety, word of the rescue began to spread through the galaxy. A species called humanity had challenged the Kragoth and won. They had risked everything to save aliens they had never met before. Other races heard the story and wondered what kind of species would do such a thing. Some were curious, others were concerned, and a few began to worry about what humanity might be capable of if they ever decided to stop being heroes and start being conquerors. But those who worried did not understand humans at all. Humanity's greatest strength was not their ability to fight. It was their refusal to become the monsters they fought against. Ambassador Claire Bennett stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council and tried not to feel small. Above her, the ceiling stretched so high she could barely see it. Around her, representatives from 100 different species watched with curious and suspicious eyes. Most of them had never seen a human before. 3 months had passed since the Endeavor rescued the Vrelics. The story had spread faster than anyone expected. Now the Council had invited humanity to join their ranks, but there was a price. Humans had to prove they deserved a seat at the table. Counselor Thexnar rose from his seat. He was Zorathian, a member of a warrior species that had dominated galactic military affairs for 300 years. He stood 9 feet tall, covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed under the lights. His voice boomed across the hall. "The Galactic Council welcomes all species who prove their worth. For centuries, we have maintained peace through strength. Our warrior traditions are honored and sacred. Humanity wishes to join us, but what have they accomplished? One rescue mission? Any species can be lucky once." Claire kept her expression neutral, but inside she was angry. She knew Thexanar was trying to humiliate humanity. The Zorathians saw humans as a threat to their status as the Council's primary military power. "Humanity accepts whatever trials the Council deems necessary," Claire said calmly. Thexnar smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing meat. "Excellent. The proving ground awaits." Commander Kyle Parker had fought in 3 wars before he turned 30. Now, at 35, he stood in an arena on Centris Prime, watching his opponent enter from the opposite gate. The Zorathian champion was a mountain of muscle and armor. His name was Krell, and he had never lost a battle. The first trial was simple combat. 1 warrior from each species. The rules were basic. No weapons, no armor, fight until one could not continue. The arena was a circular space 200 feet across with obstacles and terrain features scattered throughout. Krell beat his chest and roared. The sound echoed off the walls and made Kyle's bones vibrate. The crowd of thousands watching from the seats above cheered. They expected a quick victory. Kyle stretched his shoulders and took a deep breath. He was 6 feet tall and weighed 180 pounds. Krell was twice his size and 3 times his strength. In a straight fight, Kyle would lose in seconds. So he would not fight straight. The bell rang. Krell charged forward like a freight train. Kyle ran away, The crowd murmured in confusion. Warriors were supposed to meet their opponents with courage, not flee like prey. Kyle vaulted over a low wall and kept moving. Krell crashed through the wall instead of going around it. The Zorathian was fast for his size, but Kyle was faster. He led his opponent on a chase around the arena, using every obstacle to slow the larger warrior down. "Stand and fight, coward," Krell bellowed. Kyle did not waste breath responding. He was conserving his energy while making Krell burn his. The Zorathian was strong, but all that muscle required oxygen. Kyle kept him moving, kept him angry, kept him off balance. After 10 minutes, Krell was breathing hard. After 20, he was stumbling. After 30, his charges were slower and his reactions were delayed. Kyle had barely broken a sweat. That was when Kyle stopped running. He turned and faced his opponent. Krell, relieved that the human had finally stopped being a coward, gathered his remaining strength for one final charge. Kyle waited until the last second, then dropped and rolled to the side. Krell's momentum carried him into a stone pillar. Hard. The Zorathian fell to his knees, dazed. Kyle moved in quickly and applied a chokehold he had learned in Special Forces training. Krell struggled, but he had nothing left. Within seconds, he went limp. Kyle held the hold for a moment longer to be sure, then released and stepped back. The arena was silent. Then slowly, the crowd began to cheer. Even the Zorathians were impressed, though they tried not to show it. Krell had been beaten not by greater strength but by greater strategy. The second trial was tactical. Each species had to defend a simulated colony from an invasion. Most species brought overwhelming firepower to bear, destroying the invading army but leaving the colony damaged. Sergeant Nina Davis led the human team. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had grown up in a rough neighborhood and learned early that the best defense was making the enemy afraid to attack. Instead of meeting the simulated invasion with military force, Nina organized the colonists. She taught them how to make improvised weapons, how to set traps, how to gather intelligence and strike at weak points. She turned farmers and shopkeepers into a resistance network. The invasion force won the initial battle easily, but they could not hold the colony. Every street corner had an ambush. Every building was a potential death trap. Supply lines were constantly attacked. Officers were assassinated. The invaders controlled the colony on paper, but in reality, they controlled nothing. The judges watched with growing discomfort. This was not how war was supposed to work. There were supposed to be clear battle lines, honorable combat between soldiers. What Nina had created was messy and brutal and effective. Counselor Thexanar stood and objected. "This is not warfare. This is terrorism." Nina looked him in the eye. "No, this is survival. When you are weaker than your enemy, you do not fight their way. You fight your way, and you make them pay for every inch of ground." "It is dishonorable," Thexanar insisted. "There is no honor in being conquered," Nina replied. "Ask the people we saved if they care about honor. They care about being alive." The judges had no choice but to pass the human team. The simulation had proven that conventional invasion could not defeat humans even when humans lacked superior forces. The final trial was the hardest. Each species had to demonstrate their understanding of honor. Other species presented elaborate ceremonies, ancient codes, and grand speeches about glory and courage. When it was humanity's turn, Commander Parker stepped forward. He did not wear dress uniform or medals. He wore simple combat fatigues. "I want to tell you about a man named Greg Hamilton," Kyle began. "He was a soldier in Earth's military. During the Mars Rebellion, his squad was ambushed. Greg had been accused of theft by some of his squad members. They testified against him at his court-martial. He was found guilty and demoted. The council listened, confused about where this story was going. During the ambush, Greg could have escaped. Instead, he stayed behind to cover his squad's retreat. Those same men who had testified against him, who had cost him his rank and reputation. He died saving people who had betrayed him. When asked why he did it, his last words were simple. "They are my brothers, and I do not abandon my brothers." Kyle paused and looked around the great hall. That is human honor. It is not about codes or ceremonies. It is about doing what is right even when it costs you everything. Even when the people you save do not deserve it. We fight not for glory, but for each other. We protect not for honor, but because it is who we are. The hall was quiet. Then Ambassador Bennett noticed something surprising. Several council members were nodding. A few looked moved by the story. Even Thexnar seemed less confident. The vote was close, but humanity passed all 3 trials. They were granted membership in the Galactic Council. But something more important had happened. Other species had seen that humans thought about war and honor differently. They did not fight for personal glory. They fought to protect others, using whatever methods worked. That made them unpredictable. Unpredictable warriors were dangerous warriors. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity was not just another species. They were something new, something that did not fit into the old categories of strong and weak, honorable and dishonorable. They were survivors who refused to play by anyone else's rules, and that terrified the established powers more than any weapon ever could. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the back of the chamber and watched as species argued with each other. On the main display, footage played showing Kixari warships attacking peaceful colonies. Cities burned, ships exploded, thousands were dying. It made no sense. The Kixari communion had been peaceful for 800 years. They were deeply religious, devoted to harmony and understanding. Their ships were designed for exploration and rescue, not war. Yet somehow they had converted those ships into weapons and were now slaughtering their neighbors. Councillor Thexanar's voice rose above the others. "We must strike now before they grow stronger. Destroy their military capability and occupy their worlds." Many council members agreed. The Kixari had broken the most sacred law of the council by attacking without provocation. They had to be stopped. Ambassador Bennett stepped forward. "Something is wrong. The Kixari do not just change their entire philosophy overnight. We should investigate before we destroy an entire species." Thexnar glared at her. "Humans are too soft. You see enemies and want to understand them. We see enemies and eliminate them. It is why Zorathians have survived for thousands of years while weaker species have perished. Or maybe you survive because you are quick to kill and slow to think," Bennett replied coolly. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. The council was dividing into 2 camps. Those who wanted immediate military action and those who wanted answers first. Only the Vrelics supported humanity's call for investigation. Commander Zilnax had not forgotten who saved his people. In the end, a compromise was reached. Admiral Sullivan would take a small fleet to Kixar Prime under a flag of truce. She would have 72 hours to find an explanation. If she failed, the Council Armada would destroy the Kixari homeworld to prevent whatever madness had infected them from spreading. Kate stood on the bridge of her flagship and studied the planet below. Kixar Prime was beautiful, covered in forests and oceans. Cities dotted the surface, their architecture graceful and organic. It did not look like the homeworld of monsters. It looked peaceful. Captain Ryan Torres commanded the destroyer Valiant, one of the ships in Kate's small task force. He was young and aggressive, convinced that the best defense was a strong offense. He wanted to believe the Kixari could be saved, but he was not optimistic. "Admiral, we are being hailed," the communications officer reported. On the screen appeared a Kixari. The species were tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Their eyes were large and expressive. This one's eyes showed pain. "I am High Prelate Zendora. Please, you must leave. We cannot control ourselves. Something has taken our minds. We are trying to fight it, but we are losing." Kate leaned forward. "What has taken you? What is controlling your people?" Zendora's face twisted in anguish. "We do not know. It came from deep space. It whispers to us, fills our minds with rage and hate. We who have known only peace for centuries now dream only of war. Please destroy us before we hurt more innocents. It is the only mercy left to us." The transmission cut off. Kate looked at her crew. Dr. Helen Foster, the science officer, was already working at her station. Helen had spent years studying alien psychology. If anyone could figure this out, it was her. "I need to get down there," Helen said. "I need samples, readings, anything that can help us understand what is happening." Kate knew it was dangerous. The Kixari fleet was already moving to intercept them. But Helen was right. They needed information. She ordered a small team to take a shuttle down to the surface. Helen went with them, along with a security detail led by Captain Torres. The city they landed in was deserted. The Kixari had locked themselves in their homes, trying to resist whatever was controlling them. Helen's scanners went wild as soon as they started taking readings. There, she pointed to a building in the center of the city. Something is broadcasting from there. A signal that matches no known technology. They forced their way inside and found it, the Nexus. It looked like a mass of dark crystals pulsing with sickly light. Tendrils of energy reached out from it, invisible except on Helen's instruments. Those tendrils connected to every Kixari in the city. Helen studied it frantically. It is a parasite, a psychic parasite. It feeds on conflict and violence. It infected the Kixari leadership first, using them to spread aggression throughout the species. Ryan stared at the thing with disgust. Why did it target the Kixari? They are peaceful. There are plenty of violent species in the galaxy. That is exactly why, Helen replied, her eyes widening as she understood. Species that are naturally aggressive have built up resistance to this kind of influence. They are used to managing violent impulses. The Kixari have had 800 years of peace. They have no defenses against this. They are vulnerable. Back on the flagship, Kate received Helen's report and felt sick. The Kixari were not evil. They were victims. And the Council was preparing to exterminate them for being infected. Then the situation got worse. Kixari warships surrounded the human fleet. Dozens of them. All broadcasting demands that the humans leave or be destroyed. Kate had to make a choice. Fight her way out and let the Kixari be destroyed or stay and try to save them. She chose neither. Instead, she opened a communication channel on all frequencies. She broadcast to every Kixari ship and every Kixari on the planet below. My name is Admiral Kate Sullivan of Earth. I want to tell you about my species. We are not special. We are not the strongest or the smartest. But we know something about fighting darkness because we have been fighting it inside ourselves for thousands of years. She told them about Earth's history, about the wars and violence that nearly destroyed humanity, about the constant struggle to be better than their worst impulses, about the darkness that lived in every human heart, and how they learned to acknowledge it without letting it control them. You are not weak for being infected, Kate continued. You are not failures for struggling. This parasite targeted you because you were good. It feared your peace and wanted to corrupt it. But you can fight back. You know what you truly are. Hold on to that. Helen worked frantically on the shuttle analyzing the Nexus. She found a frequency that disrupted its connection, but it would only work for a few seconds. Just enough time for the Kixari to resist. Do it, Kate ordered. The signal broadcast across the system. For a brief moment, the Nexus's control weakened. High Prelate Zendora, freed from the parasite's influence, knew what she had to do. She ordered her flagship to set course for the Kixari moon, where the largest Nexus growth was located. Her crew, also briefly free, obeyed without question. The flagship rammed into the moon at full speed. The explosion was visible from orbit. The Nexus core was destroyed, and without it, the parasite began to die. Throughout the system, Kixari stopped attacking and started weeping as they realized what they had done under the Nexus's control. When the Council fleet arrived expecting a battle, they found humans helping the Kixari recover. Medical teams treated the traumatized aliens. Engineers helped repair damaged cities. Counselors talked with Kixari who were struggling with guilt over actions they could not control. Counselor Thexanar could not hide his discomfort. This was not how war was supposed to end. Enemies were supposed to be defeated, not saved. Ambassador Bennett stood before the Council and made her report. The Kixari were not our enemies. They were victims. We chose to save them because that is what we do. We do not destroy people who can be helped. The Kixari became humanity's closest allies after that day. They would never forget that humans chose mercy when everyone else chose destruction, and the rest of the galaxy learned something important about humanity. They were dangerous not because they were quick to kill, but because they were slow to kill. They would give their enemies every chance to be saved, but if you hurt the innocent, if you threatened those they protected, they would stop you no matter the cost. That combination of mercy and determination made them the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The alert came at 3 a.m, Galactic Standard Time. General Nathan Cross was not sleeping anyway. He had been studying star charts, trying to find any weakness in the enemy's advance. When the message appeared on his display, he read it 3 times to make sure he understood. The Devourer had arrived. For 3 years, humanity had been hearing rumors about something in dark space. Ancient machines that harvested biological life and processed it into raw materials. Most species thought it was just a scary story. Then the Devourer fleet emerged from the void and proved the stories were not scary enough. They hit the Zorathian Empire first. Vexnar's proud warriors threw everything they had at the machines. It was not enough. The Devourer weapons tore through Zorathian ships like paper. Their shields absorbed energy blasts without even flickering. In 6 hours, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was reduced to debris. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Nathan attended via hologram, too busy preparing Earth's defenses to travel to Centrus Prime. He watched as species that had argued for years suddenly agreed on one thing. They were all going to die unless they found a way to stop the Devourer. General Cross, the council leader, said, "You are hereby given command of all combined forces. Stop this threat by any means necessary." Nathan wanted to laugh. They were giving him command not because they respected humans, but because everyone else had already failed. He was their last desperate hope. Instead of laughing, he simply nodded and got to work. He studied every recording of Devourer attacks. He analyzed their tactics and strategies. What he found was both impressive and terrifying. The machines were perfect. They calculated the optimal response to every situation. They never made mistakes. They never acted emotionally. They were pure logic and efficiency. That perfection was their weakness. Nathan called a meeting with his top officers. Colonel Maya Chen was there, her fighter pilot uniform crisp despite the late hour. Captain Ryan Torres attended via hologram from his destroyer. Ambassador Bennett joined them representing the civilian government. "I have a plan," Nathan began. "The council is not going to like it." He explained his idea. The room was silent when he finished. Maya spoke first, her voice careful. "Sir, you are suggesting we use Earth as bait." "Our home world. The planet where 8 billion humans live. I am suggesting we evacuate Earth and turn it into the largest trap in galactic history," Nathan corrected. "The Devourer analyzes strategic value. Earth is humanity's homeworld, the center of our government and culture. They will commit major resources to harvesting it." Ryan shook his head. "No species sacrifices their homeworld. It is insane." "Exactly," Nathan replied. "The Devourer will not expect it because it is not logical. That is why it will work." Ambassador Bennett was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood. "I will present it to the government. If this is our only chance, then we take it. Earth is just a planet. We can find another. But if we lose this fight, there will not be anyone left to remember Earth anyway." The evacuation took 2 weeks. It was the largest logistical operation in human history. Every ship humanity had was pressed into service. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, even personal yachts. 8 billion people needed to be moved to colony worlds across known space. People left their homes with whatever they could carry. They did not panic or riot. They helped each other. Old enemies put aside their differences. Everyone understood what was at stake. Private Danny Murphy was 22 years old. He had joined the military right out of school, looking for adventure. Now he stood on the surface of Mars, watching the last transport ships leave Earth's orbit. His home world was empty, waiting to become a battlefield. Danny was part of the trap. Thousands of volunteers had stayed behind, hiding throughout the solar system. Their job was to make sure the Devourer did not just destroy Earth from orbit. They had to lure the machines in close. The Devourer fleet arrived 3 days later. They moved with eerie precision, their ships forming perfect geometric patterns. Nathan watched from the command center on Mars. His hands were steady, but inside he was praying this would work. The machines scanned Earth and found it undefended. They moved closer, beginning their harvesting operations. That was when Nathan gave the signal. Hidden ships powered up throughout the solar system. Not warships, but civilian vessels retrofitted with whatever weapons humans could attach to them. Mining ships with drilling lasers. Cargo haulers with railguns. Passenger liners with missile pods strapped to their hulls. The asteroid belt came alive with explosions. Thousands of mines detonated, filling space with debris that tore through Devourer shields. Mars and the outer moons revealed hidden railgun batteries, hurling metal slugs at relativistic speeds. Colonel Chen led the fighter assault, Her squadron was not flying military fighters but civilian craft modified for combat. The Devourer's targeting systems were optimized for military vessels. They struggled to prioritize targets when faced with thousands of non-standard ships. Maya dove her fighter between two Devourer ships, firing as she went. Her weapons barely scratched their armor, but that was not the point. She was forcing them to react, making them adjust their perfect formations. Behind her, mining ships moved in, using industrial drills to bore into Devourer hulls. The machines adapted quickly, but humans adapted faster. When the Devourer started targeting the improvised weapons, humans switched tactics. When they learned to counter one strategy, humans tried something completely different. Danny was part of a boarding team that managed to penetrate a Devourer command ship. It was a suicide mission and everyone knew it. Their goal was to upload a virus that Dr. Foster and Kiksari scientists had developed together. A program designed not to destroy the Devourer but to introduce chaos into their perfect logic. The interior of the Devourer ship was cold and sterile. Danny and his team fought through automated defenses, losing people with every step. By the time they reached the central node, only Danny was left. He plugged in the virus and started the upload. Alarms screamed around him. He knew he had seconds before the machines killed him, so he recorded a message, broadcasting it to the entire Devourer network. My name is Danny Murphy. I am 22 years old. I grew up on Earth and I will die here defending it. You machines, you do not understand why we fight. You think we are just biological resources to be processed, but we are more than that. We fight because life has meaning. Because love and friendship and hope are worth dying for. You took away your own meaning when you became machines. Now you want to take ours. We will not let you. The virus spread through the Devourer network, but so did Danny's message. The ancient machines, for the first time in millions of years, encountered a question they could not answer. If perfection meant destroying everything that made existence meaningful, what was the point of perfection? The Devourer fleet did not explode. It did not self-destruct. It simply stopped. The machines hung in space, processing concepts they were never designed to understand. Then, slowly, they turned away from Earth and drifted back into dark space. Nathan watched them go, hardly daring to believe it had worked. Earth was scarred by the battle. Cities were damaged. The moon had new craters, but the planet was still there. More importantly, humanity was still alive. Colonel Chen landed her fighter and climbed out. She was exhausted, her uniform torn and stained, but she was smiling. Maya had lost friends today, but they had won. Against impossible odds, they had survived. The galaxy learned something that day. Humanity would sacrifice everything for a chance at survival. They would give up their homeworld, fight with civilian ships, and send their children into certain death if it meant protecting what they loved. That absolute refusal to surrender, that willingness to pay any price made them the most dangerous species in existence, because you could not defeat an enemy that would rather die than submit. You could only hope they never decided you were a threat worth eliminating. 10 years after the Devourer War, President Alex Morgan stood at the window of his office and looked out at the rebuilt city below. Earth had recovered, at least physically. New buildings stood where old ones had fallen. Parks had been replanted. The scars of battle were mostly hidden now. But some scars did not heal so easily. The galaxy was at peace. Pirates avoided human ships. Aggressive empires did not expand toward human territory. When the Galactic Council debated military matters, they deferred to human judgment. Humanity had become what they never wanted to be. They were the enforcers, the ones everyone feared. Alex hated it. He had not entered politics to make humanity into bullies. But how could he argue with the results? The peace was real. Lives were being saved. Children across the galaxy grew up without war. It was just that they also grew up hearing scary stories about the humans who never gave up and never showed mercy. The message on his desk made everything worse. A group of human colonies, led by Commander Felix Grant, had declared independence. They wanted nothing to do with Earth's government or the Galactic Council. They said humanity had lost its way, becoming the very thing they had fought against. The Council was furious. They demanded that Alex bring the rebels back into line by force. If humans could not control their own people, how could other species trust them to maintain galactic peace? Lieutenant Commander Sophie Blake was 28 years old. She had been a child during the Devourer War, evacuated from Earth with her family. She remembered the fear and uncertainty, but she also remembered the hope. Back then, humanity had been fighting for survival. Now they were fighting to maintain control. It felt different. Sophie was sent to negotiate with Commander Grant. Her orders were clear: convince him to rejoin the fold or prepare for military action. She did not like either option. Grant's main colony was on a planet called New Haven. It was beautiful, covered in forests and mountains. The colony was small but thriving. People went about their daily lives without weapons or warships overhead. It reminded Sophie of old Earth before everything changed. Commander Grant met her in a simple office. He was older than Sophie, maybe 50, with gray in his hair and tired eyes. He had been a military officer once but retired after the Devourer War. "I know why you are here," Grant said. "Earth wants us to fall in line. The Council wants to use us as an example, but we are not rebels. We are just trying to remember what it means to be human." Sophie sat across from him. "Help me understand. What do you think we have forgotten?" Grant looked out the window at his colony. "We used to explore. We used to discover. We used to help people because it was the right thing to do. Not because we were enforcing galactic law. Now we are just soldiers, always ready for the next war, always watching for the next threat. We are so busy being strong that we forgot how to be good." Sophie wanted to argue, but she could not. Part of her agreed with him. She had joined the military to protect people, not to intimidate them. But she also knew the galaxy was not as simple as Grant wanted it to be. "You think you can just opt out?" Sophie asked. "The universe does not work that way. Bad things happen whether you are ready for them or not." "I know," Grant replied, "but we can face those bad things without becoming bad ourselves. That is what we are trying to prove." The conversation was interrupted by alarms. Sophie's communicator came alive with urgent messages. A Kragoth pirate fleet had just entered the system. They were heading straight for New Haven. The pirates had heard about the human colonies that rejected military protection. They thought isolated humans would be easy prey, a chance to prove that the fearsome reputation of humanity was exaggerated. Grant's face went pale but determined. He activated the colony's defenses, what few they had. Sophie immediately called for Earth's military to intervene, but Grant stopped her. "If we call for Earth to save us, we prove your point. We prove that you cannot be peaceful without being weak. Let us handle this our way." "Your way will get everyone killed," Sophie said bluntly. "You do not have the ships or weapons to fight off a Kragoth fleet." "Then we will die proving that some things are worth more than survival," Grant replied. Sophie watched in horror as the colonists prepared to defend their world. They had mining ships and personal shuttles. They had hunting rifles and improvised explosives. They had courage and determination. But they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. She made a choice that surprised everyone, including herself. Instead of calling Earth's military, she broadcast a message to the entire Galactic Council. She showed them what was happening: a peaceful human colony under attack by pirates. She challenged other species to help, not because they feared human retaliation, but because it was the right thing to do. For long, tense hours, nothing happened. The galaxy watched as Grant's colonists fought a losing battle. They used every tactic humans had ever developed: guerrilla warfare, ambush tactics, asymmetric combat. But it was not enough. Then ships began arriving. Frelix vessels, bringing their advanced engineering to help with defenses. Kixari ships providing medical support and supplies. Even a few Zarathian warriors appeared, volunteering to fight alongside the colonists. These species were not coming because they feared humanity. They were coming because humans had once saved them, and now they wanted to return the favor. Elder Janix, the old Zorathian who had witnessed humanity's rise, commanded one of the volunteer ships. He contacted Sophie directly. "Tell your Commander Grant that strength is not measured by weapons. It is measured by the friendships you build." He wanted to prove humans could be peaceful. He has proven something better. He has proven that human goodness inspires goodness in others. The combined fleet was not particularly large, but it was enough. The Kragoth pirates found themselves facing not just humans but a coalition of species who had all been helped by humanity at some point. The pirates fled, confused and angry. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they found something they could not understand: unity built on friendship rather than fear. After the battle, President Morgan traveled to New Haven personally. He met with Commander Grant in the same simple office where Sophie had talked with him. You were right, Alex said. We have been so focused on being strong that we forgot why we fought in the first place. We fought to protect people, to help them, to give them hope. Somewhere along the way, we started fighting just to prove we could win. Grant nodded slowly. So what happens now? Do we rejoin Earth's military? No, Alex replied. Your colonies can stay independent. You will be an example of what humanity can be when we choose peace. And Earth will change too. We are reducing our military presence across the galaxy. Instead, we will focus on mutual defense agreements. We will fight alongside other species as equals, not as their protectors. The change was not easy or fast. Some species continued to fear humans. Some humans struggled with not being seen as the galaxy's defenders. But slowly a new dynamic emerged. Human soldiers became teachers, showing other species how to defend themselves. Not just tactics and strategy, but the philosophy behind them. Protect the weak. Never give up. Choose mercy when you can. Sophie became an ambassador to the independent colonies. She watched young humans growing up without the weight of being the galaxy's enforcers. They were explorers and scientists and artists. They were still brave and determined, but they were no longer defined solely by their ability to fight. 5 years after New Haven, a ceremony was held on Earth. Representatives from dozens of species gathered not for a military event but for a cultural festival. Human children played with alien children. Stories were shared. Friendships were formed. Elder Jonix gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. He was very old now, his scales gray with age, but his voice was strong. I have watched humanity for many years. At first I feared them because they were dangerous warriors. Then I feared them because they were too compassionate, too willing to sacrifice. But now I understand. Humanity taught us that warriors do not have to be feared. They can be loved. They can inspire others to be brave. That is the real reason humanity became the galaxy's most feared species. Not because they were the strongest, but because they showed everyone else how to be strong. And there is nothing more frightening to tyrants and bullies than a galaxy full of people who refuse to be victims. Humanity gave us that gift. For that, the galaxy will always be grateful and, yes, a little bit afraid. Because we know that if we ever become the monsters, humanity will stop us. Not because they want to rule, but because they refuse to let anyone suffer what they have suffered. That is true strength. That is true courage. That is humanity. The young relic student raised her hand nervously. Around her, the classroom was filled with children from a dozen different species. Some had scales, others had fur. A few glowed faintly in the dim light. At the front of the room, Lieutenant Commander Sophie Blake smiled and nodded. Yes, Tella? The Vrelic's child's large eyes blinked slowly. Commander Blake, my parents say that humans are the scariest warriors in the galaxy. But you do not look scary. Why is everyone afraid of you? Sophie had been teaching at the Galactic Academy for 3 years now. She had been asked this question in many different ways. She never grew tired of answering it because the answer was important. That is a very good question. Tella, let me tell you a story about why people fear humanity. Sophie dimmed the lights and activated the holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the students. They showed Earth, blue and green and beautiful. This is where humans come from. It is a world of extremes. Burning deserts and frozen tundras, deep oceans and tall mountains. Humans evolved to survive in almost any environment. That made us adaptable. When we faced a problem we could not solve one way, we tried another way, then another. We never stopped trying. The images shifted, showing ancient humans hunting animals much larger than themselves. We were not the strongest predators on our world. We were not the fastest. We did not have claws or fangs or armor, but we had something else. We had endurance. When we hunted, we did not try to catch our prey in a single chase. We followed them for days. We ran them until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then we moved in. Other species called this persistence hunting. Humans just called it not giving up. A Zerathian child spoke up, his voice full of youthful pride. But Zerathians are stronger than humans. We would win in a fair fight? Sophie nodded. You are absolutely right. In a fair fight, a Zerathian would defeat a human almost every time. But here is the thing about humans. We do not fight fair. We fight to win. If you are stronger than us, we use tactics that do not require strength. If you are faster, we set traps. If you have better weapons, we take them from you. Humans do not believe in fair fights. We believe in surviving. The images showed the rescue of the Vrelic ship, the arena combat with Krell, and the battle against the Devourer. The students watched with wide eyes. But there is more to it than that, Sophie continued. Humans are feared because we refuse to let our enemies define the battlefield. When the Kragoth pirates attacked with strength, we used cunning. When the Devourer came with perfect logic, we answered with chaos and emotion. We are unpredictable because we always find a new way to fight. A Kikshari child raised a tentacle. My grandmother says humans saved our species. She says you are heroes, not monsters. How can you be both? Sophie felt a lump in her throat. She remembered the Kikshari crisis. That is the heart of it. Humans are feared not because we are cruel, but because we are dangerous when protecting what we love. Think of it like this. A mother protecting her children is the most dangerous creature in existence, not because she wants to hurt anyone, but because she will do anything to keep her children safe. Humanity is like that mother, but we consider the entire galaxy to be our children. The classroom was silent as the students processed this. There is another reason people fear us, Sophie said quietly. It is because we remember. We remember every species that has been destroyed by war. We remember what it feels like to be weak and vulnerable. We remember the cost of peace. And we have decided that no one else will suffer what we suffered if we can prevent it. Tella raised her hand again. But Commander, if humans are so strong, why do you teach us to fight? Why not just protect us yourselves? Sophie smiled. Because that is not protection, Tella. That is control. True protection means teaching you to protect yourselves. It means standing beside you as equals, not above you as guardians. We learned that lesson the hard way. She told them about Commander Grant in New Haven, about how humans almost forgot what they were fighting for, about how other species came together to help because they wanted to, not because they feared punishment. The galaxy does not need humans to be its warriors, Sophie said. It needs every species to be brave. It needs everyone to stand up against bullies and tyrants. That is what we teach here. Not how to fight like humans, but how to find your own strength. After class, Sophie walked through the academy grounds. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Around her, students from dozens of species studied and played together. She saw a young Zorathian helping a smaller Vrelix with combat forms. A human teenager was teaching Kikshari students about strategy using a board game. Elder Jonix approached slowly, leaning on a walking stick. The old Zorathian had retired from active service but still visited the academy regularly. You gave a good lesson today, he said. I listened from the hallway, Sophie smiled. I hope I got it right. It is hard to explain why we are feared without sounding like we are bragging or threatening. Jonix nodded. You did well. You told them the truth. Humanity is feared because you are dangerous when necessary but kind when possible. That combination is rare in the universe. Most species are either predators or prey. Humans refuse to be either. You are protectors, and protectors are always feared by those who would harm the innocent. They walked in comfortable silence for a moment. Then the old Zorathian spoke again. Do you know what truly makes humans the most feared warriors? It is not your tactics or your weapons or even your determination. It is your hope. Sophie looked at him in surprise. Hope? That does not sound very frightening. Oh, but it is, Jonix replied. Hope is the most dangerous weapon in existence. A warrior without hope will fight until the odds become too bad, then surrender. But a warrior with hope will fight forever. They will try impossible strategies. They will sacrifice everything. They will inspire others to do the same. You cannot defeat hope with force. You can only match it with hope of your own. Sophie thought about the Devourer War, about Danny Murphy broadcasting his message as he died, about humanity evacuating Earth and turning their homeworld into a trap. Jonix was right. They had done all that because they believed they could win. Against logic, against odds, they had hope. When I was young, Jonix continued, we Zorathians believed strength was everything. We thought fear was a tool to control others. But humans taught us different. Fear is not respect. Fear is just fear. Real strength inspires others to be strong. That is what you do here at the Academy. You give these young ones hope that they can protect what they love. You make them dangerous, yes, but dangerous to evil, not to innocence. That night, Sophie recorded a message to President Morgan. She did it every month, reporting on the Academy's progress. This time she added something personal. I understand now why the galaxy fears us. It is not because we are monsters. It is because we show other species that they do not have to be victims. We teach them to fight back, to resist, to never give up. Every tyrant and bully in the universe should fear that. They should fear a galaxy full of people who refuse to submit. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We are not the galaxy's warriors anymore. We are the galaxy's teachers. And that might be even more dangerous. Because soldiers can be defeated, but ideas cannot. The idea that everyone deserves protection, that the weak should not be exploited, that bullies should be stopped no matter the cost. Those ideas spread faster than any weapon. They inspire revolution against oppression. They make people brave. That is why humanity is truly feared. Not because we might destroy you, but because we might inspire you to destroy tyranny yourselves. Years passed. The Galactic Academy grew, establishing branches on dozens of worlds. More species learned to defend themselves. Pirates found fewer easy targets. Aggressive empires discovered that weaker species were no longer so weak. The peace held, not because humans enforced it, but because everyone contributed to it. Humanity became known throughout the galaxy as the species that turned prey into predators, victims into heroes, and the helpless into warriors. They were still feared, but it was a different kind of fear now. It was the fear that criminals feel when they realize the police are coming. It was the fear that bullies feel when their victims fight back. It was the fear that evil should feel when good refuses to be beaten. And that more than anything else was why humanity became the galaxy's most feared warrior species. Not because they were the best fighters, but because they made everyone else better fighters too. They shared their strength instead of hoarding it. They taught their secrets instead of hiding them. They turned a galaxy of potential victims into a galaxy of defenders. And any force that threatened innocence now faced not just humanity, but everyone humanity had inspired. That was the real reason to fear humans. Because when you fought them, you fought the entire galaxy.